Hello everybody and welcome to DC Central, and in today's video we're going to be breaking down and reviewing Supergirl Season 4 Episode 19, otherwise entitled American Dreamer, and if you have not seen this episode make sure you go and do so before proceeding with this review, as it will be filled with spoilers. So first off, up top, I'd just like to address the consistency situation on this channel. I had an incredibly hectic week last week. I was barely at home at all last week. I barely had access to my laptop, so I wasn't even actually able to make any videos at all. I was only home on Tuesday, hence why you got my Arrow review on that day. But all the other stuff I just completely got lost in, and unfortunately wasn't able to cover those episodes. And it's actually quite funny because still, as of recording this video, I have not seen The Flash from last week. I still have not seen episode 19 of The Flash, so I'm going to have to try and watch that tonight. But anyway, with all that out of the way, let's jump into the review for Supergirl. Firstly, I'd like to mention David Harewood in this, as this was his directorial debut. We've seen quite a lot of directorial debuts coming from actors all across the Arrowverse. We've had Danielle Panabaker very recently on The Flash, we had David Ramsey on Arrow, and now we have David Harewood on Supergirl. I think that this episode was a pretty decent showcase. I don't think this was as impressive of an episode as, say, what Danielle Panabaker was able to get, with obviously her episode being Godspeed, and that being a very, very strong episode of The Flash, possibly the best of the season. I feel like, you know, this episode was kind of just like another kind of, you know, it was just your next episode of Supergirl. There wasn't really much special about it to really help David showcase his skills. I'm not saying he did a bad job, not remotely. I think David Harewood did a very competent and very good job with this episode. It's just, unfortunately, I think in comparison to something like Danielle Panabaker's episode with Godspeed, it just doesn't quite have the same pizzazz about it. But either way, I'm still really excited to see what David is going to do next in the directing front, and I'm really happy with what he did with this episode. So in the main bulk of the episode, we have Kara investigating Lex. Kara is still basically retired from being Supergirl for the moment, obviously, as the government are always coming down on her all the time, so she's pretty much just Kara Danvers full on. And I actually kind of enjoyed the fact that Kara was kind of segregated in this episode. She's kind of separated from the rest of the group. She's not really a part of it. She's there doing her own thing. And I think that this was actually a really good story, actually, was her investigating Lex, investigating this other company, trying to get in with this other company by investigating this other woman who she comes into contact with. I thought that this story, you know, actually having Kara using her journalism skills once again is always a treat, and I think seeing her use those skills is something that this season has kind of been lacking a little bit. Like, Catco hasn't really been as big of a part of this season as it has been in the earlier seasons, so I actually liked seeing Kara just being out there, being a reporter, being a journalist, you know, doing her job. I really appreciated all of that, and again, I thought it actually created a pretty decent story out of it. Now, we also had Brainy helping James in this episode. At the end of the last episode, we saw James kind of getting these very weird, like, black veins coming out of his body after, obviously, he's suffering from PTSD as well. And this was really good because this actually meant that James got to do something. Like, James actually got a story in this episode, and James was actually a pretty big part of this episode, which I really liked. I always say how I feel bad for James. I always say I feel bad for Mehcad Brooks, and I think he's incredibly underserved as an actor. And in this, I think he really got to showcase, you know, all that he is worth, because this storyline with James, like, facing his demons, we actually get to learn a bit about his backstory. We get to see flashbacks for James. Like, we get to see all these different things. And again, just providing James with a story, like a platform to actually allow Mehcad Brooks to showcase his acting talent, was something that I think is massively a big thing for this episode, because Mehcad Brooks, like, he did a fantastic job in this episode, like, really good job from the emotional standpoint. Him pairing with Azzy Tesfaye, who is, of course, playing his sister in this show. You know, their scenes together, Brainy kind of being, you know, the comic relief where it needed to be. I just think all these elements, all this, like, all these little parts that went with this story of Brainy helping James with the PTSD was fantastic. And again, just giving James that story, I really, really liked. I'm not quite sure how I feel about James getting superpowers, but we'll have to wait and see where they go with that one. Again, if it means more stuff for James, then great. I'm just not sure if this is the direction I would have chosen myself. But again, I'm going to withhold judgment. I'll wait and see what they actually do with this storyline as and when they come to it. And the other thing going on is we have Nia as Dreamer out there just being a vigilante. She's trying to protect National City while Supergirl is no longer around. And I actually really like this. We got some really cool fight scenes in this episode with Nia. One in the very beginning, one sort of in the middle in this big office building. Like, it was a really cool actual demonstration of what Nia can do with her powers, because I feel like, you know, her powers were very difficult to convey. I feel like a lot of people, when they first heard about what her powers are going to be, everyone was like, well, that's a bit it's a bit boring, like it's a bit, you know, what's she actually going to do in the field sort of thing. But in this, we could actually see that maybe she can manifest things, you know, she can manifest constructs, kind of similar to Green Lantern in a way. Like she was creating these like whips, which I assume are being made by, you know, Dream Energy. I'm pretty sure Brainy brought that up a few weeks ago. So, you know, I actually really like doing this, and also she does get to do a conference, like basically Kara says, I want to interview you, I want to make you an exclusive, and she comes out to National City. She says, I am Dreamer. She talks about how she comes from, you know, she's both human and alien because her father was human but her mother was an alien. She also comes out as the transgender superhero on TV in front of National City, which was a really nice moment. And I think all the stuff with Nia was also a great little side piece for this episode, and I think this further proves why I think Nia is such a good character. I really like her a lot. Ever since she was introduced in this season, I was always a big fan of her, and I'm just continuing to like her more and more the more I see of her. Overall, I thought this was a strong episode of Supergirl. I really enjoyed it. Once again, another good episode for this back half of the season, and I've just continued to be more and more impressed with Supergirl Season 4 as it's gone on, although I think it had an incredibly rough start. Seeing how it's transcended itself and seeing how it's developed and changed and evolved in this back half has been a real pleasure to watch. Like, I love the fact that I'm actually enjoying and looking forward to Supergirl every week, because to be honest, I never thought that would happen, and this episode just proves as to why. I really like this episode a lot, and again, I thought this was a very good directorial debut for David Harewood, and all the great moments in this episode, all the good stories with Kara, with James, I really enjoyed it all. And you know, we're only a few episodes away from the season finale now, we're nearly there, and I feel like that this season does feel like it is ramping up. So thank you guys for watching this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a like, it'll help me out a lot, and share this video with anyone and everyone you know who loves DC TV and get them to join the community. And as always guys, please subscribe for all of your latest content on Supergirl, The Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, and Arrow. And with all that said guys, I hope to see you again in my next video.